肝癌是全球第6大最常见的癌症，更是亚洲最高死亡率癌症第2位。根据马来西亚国家癌症记录，肝癌患者以华裔最多，接着是乌裔和印裔。其实走向肝癌必须经过3步曲，那就是从正常的肝到肝炎、肝硬化，最后才是肝癌。所以肝癌的最初期就是肝炎。我们最常听到的 B 型肝炎、C 型肝炎只是其中2种，大约90%的患者就是从这2种的肝炎走向肝癌。想要避免患上肝癌，该从何下手？肝炎到底是什么？又如何预防？
各位观众朋友，大家晚上好。是的，今天呢，我们就要来了解更多关于肝脏疾病的资讯，尤其是肝炎如何引发肝癌的课题。现场我们就邀请到来自新加坡英格医院亚洲美安肝脏中心的肝脏移植先驱陈凯泽医生。欢迎现在呢正在收看直播的朋友踊跃提问。陈医生经验非常丰富，曾在英国、新加坡进行多宗活体肝脏移植手术，绝对可以为大家解答疑问。陈医生今天呢将用英文解答，但是我们还是欢迎大家用中文来提问。现场我们会进行一些简单的翻译。目前陈医生每个月也在吉隆坡 iHeal 医疗中心以及柔佛州伊斯干达特区美迪尼英格医院提供会诊咨询服務。Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the benefit of those who don't speak Mandarin, so we have with us here is Dr. Tan Kai Cha, and he will be sharing insights on the topic of viral hepatitis leading to liver cancer. Dr. Tan is a renowned liver surgeon specialist specializing in liver transplants. He was a pioneer in various liver transplant procedures as early as late 80s when he was in the UK. He returned to this part of the world to set up his own private practice and serve as the director of Liver Transplant Program, National University Hospital of Singapore from 1995 to 2002. Over the years, Dr. Tan has performed countless living donor liver transplant or LDLT, and his skills in LDLT has seen many patients enjoy a new lease of life. Dr. Tan is currently a surgeon with Asian American Liver Center at Gleneagles Hospital, Singapore, and he also provides monthly consultation service in iHeal Medical Center, Kuala Lumpur, and Gleneagles, Medini. So please seize this opportunity to get your queries on liver health answered from an expert, and let us have your questions at the comment section. So let's look at the question. Okay, maybe doctor, maybe let's start here. Like, what are the common viral hepatitis?
I think there are many types of viral hepatitis, but I think for the general public, it's best to remember the 3 main types.
Yeah.
Type A, B, and C. Of course, there is D and there is E, but they are very uncommon. So with regards to A, B, and C, always remember that for type A, the viral hepatitis A is usually transmitted through what we call an oral fecal route, whereby it's contaminated food. So it happens sometimes in a big function. Many of them get jaundice and all. Usually this is an acute illness, and then the virus disappeared. They don't usually leave behind lasting damage to the liver. What is the important thing is, of course, B and C. These are blood-borne viruses, usually transmitted because of infected blood that were transfused. But these were all in the early days when we don't know about B and C viruses. So a lot of the blood were not tested before they were transfused into these people.
Okay.
So we are seeing the more older patients with B and C. Now that we know about the virus, B has vaccination, so a lot of the babies that are born of mothers who are hepatitis B today are being vaccinated. For example, or given immunoglobulin, which is the antibody to counter the virus, because at the time of birth, the baby's blood and the mother's blood are mixed. Right. There is unfortunately today yet no vaccine for hepatitis C. And again, for hepatitis B and C, there's a lot of research that has gone on now recently. And for hepatitis C today, in the last few years, there has been some very, very good treatment for hepatitis C. And in the majority of these cases, with the proper treatment, about more than 90% of the hepatitis C can be eradicated. Unfortunately, there is today still no treatment for hepatitis B. I wouldn't say no treatment. There is a treatment, but it only controls the disease, but it doesn't get rid of the virus.
Okay, so how does all this virus hepatitis actually eventually lead to liver cancer?
Okay, the thing is that the other thing important to remember, as I mentioned earlier, both B and C can result in chronicity, whereby they don't leave the body once they are infected. So they remain in the body, right? Now for C, the C then start damaging the liver if it's not recognized and if it's not treated. So over time, the liver go through a series of getting damaged, they recover, and then they get damaged again, and then they recover. So over many, many years, so the liver becomes scarred.
Okay.
So in a scarred liver, then it's likely, first of all, to develop cancer. Second thing, as the liver become more and more and more damaged, the patient slowly go into liver failure. Now B is more dangerous because B also can damage the liver, but B, the virus itself is what we term as carcinogenic, meaning that the virus itself can cause cancer. So in the B infection, the liver doesn't have to go through a process of being damaged before the patient develop cancer. And therefore, in the patient with the B infection, they are so well, right? And then suddenly they come up with a big cancer, especially in a young person. We don't see that in C, not often, because C, the virus damaged the liver. So by that time the patient would have been unwell, would have gone and see a doctor. So right off we knew that this patient has got a liver problem.
Okay.
So we keep him or her under close monitoring. So when the cancer comes, usually they are very small before they are, and then they will be picked up. But because B doesn't go through that, the patient is perfectly well.
Okay.
And they don't go and see a doctor. And even if they go and see a doctor, because it's been so well, after a couple of times, say, I'm wasting my time, I don't want to go and see the doctor anymore. Maybe I go next year, not this year. You know, and then you get a big cancer coming on, you see.
So what are the signs of, like, if, you know, hepatitis B, it's so difficult to detect. So how do we actually know, or how can we tell what kind of symptoms that we should actually watch out for?
No, I think first of all, during the acute illness, the patient becomes yellow. They become very tired. Sometimes they have a low-grade fever, and then sometimes if they are not yellow, then they are not recognized. So they can have what we call a subclinical infection. So in a way, you know, you just feel that you have a flu-like symptoms. You think you get a flu and then it's gone away, right? Yeah, so you get the infection. So, and then usually it doesn't cause you any problem. So unless you test your blood and you go for checkup, you don't know. You won't know that you are having a B and a C infection going on. So the blood test is the most important. Now by the time they cause problems to the liver, the patient becomes jaundice. Usually they become yellow. And in the severe cases, their liver is not functioning, they accumulate water in their belly, accumulate water in the leg especially, they become swollen. You know, and in the bad cases, they begin to start vomiting blood, and then they first of all become what we call encephalopathic, which means that they go into a first stage, second stage of coma. Initially, they start forgetting things very often, and then they become very tired, very sleepy, and in the terminal cases they go into a full coma. You can't even wake them up.
I think we have actually some questions. It's actually like about our living, the style of our living. So a lot of people actually wanted to know whether sleep late is bad for our liver.
No.
No.
Answer is no.
Why so?
I sleep late all the time. The thing is that if you say that, then there are people who work at night. They don't get more liver problems than those people who work in the daytime. You know, sleep has nothing to do with liver problem, disease anyway.
Well, but there is some sort of, like, I don't know, maybe you can actually debunk this urban myth which says that our liver function at a certain hour, so we have to sleep by 11.
No, our liver function at all hours.
So
It doesn't stop functioning.
all sorts of function.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter whether you sleep
No.
late. But do you have to sleep enough?
Not really. Nothing to do with the liver. Sleeping has nothing to do with the liver. If you're not sleeping enough, there are other things that are going on anyway. You probably feel stressed out. You know, you got high blood pressure. You feel tired all the time. You're not eating well. You know, so there are many other things that can cause problems like that. So sleep itself, I wouldn't say. You know, some people need 4 or 5 hours of sleep. Some people need 10 hours of sleep before they are functional. You know, I don't sleep more than 4 or 5 hours every night anyway. So
Okay.
sleep definitely will not affect your liver problems.
So do you have some rule of thumb to offer, like an advice to offer, like how to maintain liver health?
I think the most important is that I think, you know, exercise is important. The food that you eat are important. You know, you don't want to eat too oily, too fatty things. And obviously, we know that large amount of alcohol, you know, will damage the liver. I mean, you can have the odd drinks and all, it's not a problem. But heavy binging and all is bad for the liver. So things like that. I mean, it's just be sensible, that's all.
If I binge occasionally,
I think you are okay. Occasional binges. I think you allow the liver to recover anyway. You know, in between time you're not drinking or anything like that. When we talk about, you know, heavy alcohol consumption, we are talking generally of people who are drinking from morning till night. You know, and they wake up, they start drinking and all. You know, and so they will get problems like that. You see.
just now, doctor, you mentioned that the only way to detect whether we are with hepatitis is through blood tests.
Yes.
So how often would you recommend patients to go through a blood test? How regularly should it be done?
It depends again. You know, when you do your first blood test or first screening, it will straight off tell you whether you are a carrier for hepatitis B or hepatitis C. And if you are clear from both, then you want to know, for B especially, whether you have the antibody against the virus. So if you don't have the antibody against the virus, then you should go and get yourself vaccinated to protect yourself. Right? Again, as I mentioned, C has no vaccine. On the other hand, once you have done the blood test and it shows that you are a carrier for hepatitis B, let's say you keep to B first, you are hepatitis B, then again it depends, right? Normally I would say, okay, if there is no inflammation of the liver, as your liver enzymes are not high, then I would say that perhaps you should do your test if you are young, once a year, you know, together with an ultrasound of the liver. But then again, it depends. If you come from a family where there has been cases of liver cancer, liver cirrhosis, say for example, I have come across families whereby 2 or 3 of the boys, you know, have liver cancer. So if you have got a brother or a sister or your mother that died from liver cancer or developed liver cancer, and you are a hepatitis B carrier, same as them, then I would say that you almost definitely, I think wisely, would have a blood test every 4 months, 2-3 times a year, at least, you know, just to be on the safe side. Because if you do it yearly, by the time you have the next test, you'll probably be dead if you have a cancer anyway. You know, so I would say at least 2 to 3 times a year. If you have a strong family history of liver cancer from hepatitis and you are a carrier yourself. With hepatitis C, you know, again, it doesn't usually run in family, right? So the thing is that, so I would say any time 6 monthly blood tests with ultrasound will be more than adequate.
Once if I'm a carrier of hepatitis B, right, could I be cured of it?
As I said, no.
No.
You know, because there is at this moment in time no medicine that I can confidently give it to you and say, you know, you are going to be cleared of this virus in 6 months' time. We will take this medicine. No, there is no. But on the other hand, if the virus is active and is damaging your liver, there are a lot of good medicine that can control the hepatitis B. But hepatitis C, as I mentioned to you, there are some very, very good medicine now developed over the last few years. They can get rid of the hepatitis C.
There are also some audience that actually asked, what about there are some supplements available in store and also some traditional herbs. What is your thought on that? Is it good to maintain liver health?
I think there's no harm. Most of these supplements that you are talking about, are mainly consist of vitamins. So usually it doesn't do any harm to the liver. But if you are talking about the liver being damaged by hepatitis virus, then usually this doesn't work. You need to have the proper medicine. But you can, in a way, that's why they are called supplements. You can take the supplements together with the definitive treatment. But you need the treatment. You cannot treat with supplements in a way. That's why they are called supplements.
Okay. What about traditional herbs?
It depends again. I don't know much about traditional herbs. I would say that there are some very, very good Western medicine today for treating hepatitis. I would keep to Western medicine rather than traditional Chinese medicine for viral hepatitis.
You talk about how viral hepatitis could actually lead to cancer. How do we treat liver cancer?
I think the important thing of all this is that the liver cancer itself, if the liver cancer is discovered early, then there are many treatments, right? And if they are small, they can be easy. They can quite easily be excised, And we have got many patients that when the cancer are small, we cut it out, and the person has remained well for many, many years. Because once we cut it out, we begin to start monitoring them, start treating their hepatitis, for example. On the other hand, if the cancer is discovered late, by that time it has involved most of the liver, or worse is that it has spread outside the liver, then obviously there's not very much you can do then. Yeah, but so there are many different types of treatment for different stages of the liver, and also it's important to look at the function of the liver. Say for example, if this is a patient that is quite young, he has got a liver cancer, and his liver also is not good, then you're looking at liver transplant. Because liver transplant is the only treatment, for both the conditions at one time. Right? So if you have a person with liver cancer and a bad liver, we look upon a patient like that as having two conditions.
Liver cancer
and a bad liver. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So the thing is that even if the cancer don't kill you, your bad liver will kill you.
But
right?
when your liver is cancerous, isn't it bad already?
No. Sometimes the cancer can be one part of the liver. The other part of the liver is still good. That's what I mean. You can cut it out. But if your liver is not good and you also have a cancer, then the best treatment is a transplant. Because by doing a transplant, you get rid of the cancer. You also replace the bad liver with a good liver. But on the other hand, if your liver is good and you have only a cancer, and if you can cut away the cancer, obviously cutting away the cancer is better than the transplant because it's cheaper, number one, as compared to a transplant, and the risk of the operation, obviously, the operation is much smaller than a transplant operation, right? So the specialist will have to tell you, people like us will have to advise you what is the best treatment for you given the circumstances of the extent of your cancer and the degree of liver damage. So it's not so simple as to say, this is the only treatment or that is the only treatment. Yeah, because today there is a whole range of treatment and you can choose which is the treatment that best suits you anyway.
Okay, a lot of people will think that, I'm very young. I don't have to be worried about this. Do you think that this is something... What would you advise this sort of people? I
think if you are young, definitely you have the advantage as compared to someone who is elderly. But having said that, if you are a hepatitis carrier, especially a B carrier, and you have got a very strong family history, then there is no reason why you can't get a cancer even if you are young. We have got some very young patients. Today I just saw one that is in the 20s, who had a liver cancer. And she's not even a a hepatitis carrier, you know, and she just went for incidental checkup, found a cancer, operated in October of last year, and by April, the cancer has come back again. So she's in trouble now, right?
Okay.
And the cancer has come back and affected both sides of the liver, you know. So the only recourse for her now is a transplant, because there's no other treatment for her. You can't continue to cut her, you see.
She's rather young.
Oh, she's in her 20s, I think.
Wow. That's very young.
Yeah.
So this is actually like a disease that everyone should actually watch out for.
Yes.
Okay, so we have actually a question from San Hui Lin. She said, will stress indirectly harm our liver?
I don't know what it means indirectly. I think stress is no good anyway, you know. I think stress can cause a lot of problems, as I mentioned earlier. You know, it causes you to have high blood pressure, it causes you to have, you know, inadequate sleep, it causes you to have poor appetite and all these things. It affects all the organs. Stress is not good for the body, not only the liver, not good for the heart.
Basically, if we are to sum up like how to prevent, from what you have told us, like how to prevent liver cancer, basically we have to have a healthy lifestyle, exercise regularly, eat healthily, and also to do regular blood tests. What else do you think that you would?
I think I think what you have mentioned are the most important. I think if you are young, the chance of you getting a liver cancer is not common. It's very rare. You know, it's just, you know, and most of the cancer, 80% of the cancer in this part of the world is related to hepatitis B or hepatitis C.
I don't know why, but it appears that a few of our viewers actually are very concerned whether eating supper actually harm their liver. Do you have anything to say about this?
I don't think eating supper by itself affects the liver. As I mentioned to you, the liver works all the time anyway. But eating supper is not healthy only because, you know, once you eat, you go to sleep, you know, and so you tend to put on weight, and it will affect the liver, because today, as we begin to combat the viral hepatitis,
yes,
we got vaccination, we got treatment, you know. Slowly, I think the trend is going towards a new form of liver damage, which is called fatty liver. You know, so when you're eating a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of fat, and you're not exercising, so a lot of these are accumulated in the liver. The liver become very, very fatty. And as the liver become very, very fatty, the liver get damaged, and also it becomes hardened. Just like a viral hepatitis, you know. So the trend is now towards that fatty liver now. So in the United States, for example, they have been very successful in treating the viral hepatitis. But as we all know, almost 25% of Americans are obese now.
Yes.
Yeah, because they eat a lot of fast food. They sit down there and watch TV the whole day, or play with their computer, and they don't exercise. So 25% of Americans are obese, and some of them are what we call morbidly obese, whereby they are so fat they begin to have medical problems. They begin to have morbid conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, fatty liver is one of them, and they go on to develop liver damage. And it is been estimated that in the next decade, the most common cause of liver transplant in the United States will be for fatty liver.
So what are the symptoms of fatty liver?
Again, because of obesity.
Obesity.
Yeah, obesity. And then when you do a blood test, and when you do an ultrasound of the liver, you know, ultrasound will tell you the liver is very, very fatty. Because when you do an ultrasound, in a fatty liver, it is heavy. So the sound wave comes back quite different from a soft liver. You understand?
Yes.
So from the ultrasound you can find that, and there is also other tests like the fibroscan, for example, or the MR elastography. They will tell you how firm the liver is. You can estimate how firm the liver is. So that tells you how bad the liver is being damaged. And the good thing is that with this condition, it is reversible. So the moment you recognize it, you start cutting down all the fatty food, especially the deep fried, you know, and also start exercising, start losing weight. It is reversible, provided the liver hasn't hardened yet.
So once it's hardened, it's even
Once it's hardened, it's more difficult. It's more difficult. But at least, I think once you take steps, at least it doesn't progress, you see. It doesn't progress. I mean, we see this quite often, especially among the Indonesians and among the Malays, for example.
Okay.
They like to eat a lot of fried food.
Yes.
You know, everything is fried. You know, they fry their chicken, they fry their fish, you know, and a lot of the vegetables that we eat. Unlike the Western, you know, the West, you know, they boil the vegetables. They put a bit of salt and start eating the potatoes, the cabbages, and all. Here we fry it.
Yes.
Most of it is fried, and after frying, we again add more oil in it.
Yes.
You know, so we have a very, very oily diet in this part of the world. You see, so it's not uncommon to see that many of our patients have fatty liver.
So, doctor, you mentioned ultrasound, whether it's for the viral hepatitis or whether it's for fatty liver. Do they do that regularly in our common health checkup?
Yes,
Or should we have to ask for it?
I think you should ask for it if it is not done, because ultrasound is very easily done. It's non-invasive. You know, you don't get any irradiation. It is not painful. You know, so I think you should have an ultrasound done of the liver. The ultrasound doesn't just show whether the liver is fatty or not, or cirrhotic. It also picked up any tumor in the liver. It also pick up stones, whether it's in the gallbladder or in the liver, or any cysts and things like that. So the ultrasound is a very, very important and cheap tool that can be done. It can be done by a doctor in the clinic and all this.
So for ultrasound, do we do it annually or?
I think today, given the availability and also how cheap screening is, you know, I think all of us should have at least a checkup once a year. But of course, as I mentioned to you, if you have got family history, if you have got yourself a carrier, then of course you may have to do it more frequently than once a year.
So, doctor, you mentioned just now about fatty liver. Do you have anything to add on fatty liver? That it's also about our lifestyle as well, right?
I think fatty liver is, as I mentioned again, the important thing is that fatty liver is very common. All right, but a lot of times when you do an ultrasound, you find that the liver is a bit fatty. But when you do the blood test, the liver function is normal. So that is the mild one. So that's okay. So you just have to advise the patient about diet, about exercise, you know, about some liver supplements. But on the other hand, if you do an ultrasound and it shows fatty liver, and you do a blood test and it shows that there is liver inflammation, now that's a different thing altogether. Okay, this is something that they call it NASH, N-A-S-H.
N-A-S-H.
Yeah, NASH.
Yes.
It stands for non-alcoholic steatohepatitis.
Oh.
So which means that it is not alcohol that's causing this, right? But steato means fat, right? Hepatitis is the inflammation of the liver. So it means that this person is having inflammation of the liver caused by fat and not drinking. So again, this is a bit more serious than just fatty liver, because there is now ongoing inflammation of the liver enzymes or liver test is not normal. So you have to take it a little bit more seriously than if there is no inflammation of the liver.
Okay, I think we have had a very fruitful discussion today on liver disease as also how to maintain liver health. I think our viewers should actually watch out on what doctor has said, like maintain a healthy lifestyle, exercise regularly, be wary of what you are eating, eat healthily, and as well as do a regular blood test check.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this would be like a good point to conclude our FB Live session today. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Privilege for having you here. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Tan, and also all our audience who have participated in this FB Live session. We will actually upload an edited version of this session on pockettimes.my. Please watch out for it. And also, AALC, Asian American Liver Center, will share more liver health talks information in the coming months. So like their Facebook page for more information. In July, we will also be having a similar session, but with Dr. Lee Kang Ho, and he will be also talking on fatty liver. He will be talking in particular to on fatty liver itself. So that's it for tonight. Thank you so much. 感谢陈医生，也感谢各位朋友今天的参与与收看。我们稍后呢会将今天的访问重新剪辑，再配上字幕。我知道我们有很多的观众都说，不了解医生今天的这个今天的一些解说。但是医生因为百忙之中可以在晚上抽空来，我觉得是非常的难得。但医生今天所分享的我觉得也非常的宝贵。那希望各位观众朋友呢就留意百格，因为我们会重新剪辑今天的节目。另外呢，各位也可以关注这个亚洲美安肝脏中心的脸书专页，也来关注他们将来就是跟进的一些活动讯息。7月呢，我们也会有另外一位专家，就是李康和医生来跟我们分享，就是今天陈医生就有谈到的脂肪肝的相关讯息，所以不要错过哈。最好各位朋友还是要 subscribe 我们马来西亚新洲日报官方脸书的直播。大家晚安，谢谢。